You don't belong here. The slap came before the vow. No music, no warning. Just the sharp crack of skin against skin that echoed off the stone walls of St. Augustine Church in Charleston, South Carolina. A gasp ripped through the room. Then silence. Ava Johnson stood frozen at the altar, one hand to her cheek, her cream satin veil slightly askew. Her deep brown skin was flushed where Walter Whitmore's hand had struck her. The bouquet of lilies she held dropped to the ground with a soft thud. For a split second, she looked like she might fall. "You filthy little rat," Walter spat, his voice gravelly with rage. "You think this farce means anything? You'll never be one of us." From the pews, murmurs swelled into a low roar. "Walter!" someone hissed, but Margaret Whitmore, his wife, stepped forward in full support, her tight pearl necklace gleaming against her pale collarbone. "We warned you, Ethan," she snapped, her eyes not on Ava, but her son. "You marry her, and you disgrace this family. You bring shame to our name." Ava's heart thundered against her ribs. The room blurred. Somewhere behind her, the officiant stammered something useless. Her mother stood in the third row, hands clasped over her mouth in horror. Her father was already rising from his seat. Ethan Whitmore, tall, composed, red hair neatly slicked back, stepped between his parents and his bride. His jaw clenched. He looked at Ava's swollen cheek, then back at the man who raised him. "You touch her again," Ethan said, his voice like cold steel, "and I swear I'll bury you myself." Walter sneered. "So now you raise a hand against your own blood? For that?" Ethan didn't blink. "You're not my blood. Not anymore." Gasped again. But this time, not from fear, from disbelief. From shame. The guests, his Harvard classmates in their tailored suits, Ava's cousins in bright dresses from Atlanta, sat divided. Some wide-eyed, some already reaching for their bags. The front row was unraveling like a bad thread on a wedding dress. Margaret's voice rose, shrill and trembling. "You think she loves you? People like her. They only want what they can take. She'll suck you dry and leave you in the dirt." Ava flinched. "People like her." The phrase stabbed deeper than the slap. She opened her mouth, but the words didn't come. The same way they hadn't come when Margaret had once asked if her hair was store-bought, or when Walter said, "She speaks so well for where she's from," or when the engagement announcement got returned to sender with the words, "Not interested," scrawled across the envelope. Ethan reached down, picked up Ava's bouquet, and handed it back to her gently. "Let's go," he said. Ava hesitated. Was this how her wedding day would be remembered? With hate instead of joy? He didn't wait for an answer. He took her hand and led her down the aisle, not toward the future they had planned, but toward something else. Something raw, something uncertain. No one clapped. No one followed. Only the heavy wooden doors groaned as they pushed them open, stepping into the blinding Charleston sun. Outside, the air was hot and damp. Ava's hands were shaking. He turned to her. "I'm sorry. Not your fault," she said softly, but her voice cracked. "I knew they hated me. I just didn't think they'd go this far." He shook his head. "They didn't hate you, Ava. They hated that I loved you." Behind them, inside that church, decades of quiet racism had finally found a microphone. They kept walking, past the decorative archway covered in roses, past the guests who trickled out but didn't know what to say. Some looked ashamed. Most just looked confused up by the time they reached Ethan's car, parked behind the church's garden. Ava could finally breathe. She looked at her reflection in the side mirror. The red mark was still visible. "I should have seen it coming," she said. "No," he said. "They made a choice. We'll make ours." 3 days later, they married again. Quietly, on a pier in Savannah. Just the two of them, an officiant from the county clerk's office, and Ava's younger brother filming it on his phone. No flowers. No speeches, just a promise. Love without conditions. That night, they sat by the river, watching boats drift through the warm Georgia dark. "Do you think they'll try to contact you again?" Ava asked. Ethan didn't answer right away. He was staring at the water, at the moonlight dancing over it like a moving scar. "If they do," he finally said, "they'll have to start with an apology and end with silence." She nodded, but they both knew silence wasn't what the Whitmores were made of, and sure enough, A week later, a letter arrived. Return address, Charleston, no name. Just 2 lines written in neat cursive. You'll regret this mistake. You always were soft. Ethan read it once, then folded it without a word. He didn't throw it away. He placed it on the mantel. Ava stared at it, at the heavy white envelope, the same color as the flower she'd dropped in that cursed church. Outside, thunder rolled low in the sky. The storm wasn't over. Not yet. 3 months after the slap that shattered her wedding day, Ava stood at the window of their apartment in Savannah, Georgia. Rain fell in sheets, tapping the glass like an old memory that wouldn't leave. Behind her, the soft coos of baby Luna reminded her that life had, somehow, gone on. Ethan stepped in quietly, holding a pale yellow envelope. "It's from Emily," he said. Ava turned slowly. She hadn't heard that name since the day at the church. "I wasn't brave enough back then," the letter began, "but I watched you walk out of that building with your head high. I saw courage I didn't have." Emily wrote of how she left home that very evening. She'd moved into a small studio, started therapy, and joined a local anti-racism initiative in Charleston. She spoke of unlearning, of painful realizations, of shame. But most of all, of wanting to do better. "I don't expect forgiveness, but I'd like to visit, to look you in the eyes and tell you I'm sorry." Ava read the letter twice, fingers trembling slightly. Ethan said nothing. He let her decide. 2 weeks later, Emily came, holding a simple bouquet and a hand-stitched baby quilt. No makeup, no show. She didn't rush to speak. She just sat, quietly watching Luna sleep in Ava's arms. That evening, over dinner, Emily finally said, "Silence is what kept our parents powerful. I'll let it happen. I can't undo that, but I won't be silent anymore." Ava didn't forgive her that night, but she let her hold Luna. And that, Ethan whispered later, was more than enough. Weeks passed. Then a package arrived. No return address. Inside, an old family photo album and a letter. Walter's handwriting. "I was raised to follow orders, to believe tradition meant truth," he wrote. "But all I see now is what I lost. My son, my granddaughter, my chance to be a decent man. I don't deserve to know her, but I want her to know she was never the problem. I was." Ava stared at the letter for a long time, then quietly folded it and placed it in a drawer. Life went on. Until the afternoon Margaret appeared across the street, umbrella in hand, standing in the rain. She didn't approach the door. She just stood there, watching. Ethan saw her from the window, clenched his jaw, and walked out. They spoke for 7 minutes. When he came back, Ava asked, "What did she say?" "She asked to meet Luna. And you?" "I told her she could write a letter. Maybe in 10 years. If we're still talking." They weren't out a week later. Ethan received a job offer in Seattle. A new city, a clean slate. They packed quickly, leaving behind the ghosts of Charleston at the airport. Just before boarding, an older man approached, tired eyes, slower steps. "Walter, I heard you were leaving," he said. He looked at Luna, then Ava. "She's got your strength," he said softly. In his eyes, no one responded. "I thought discipline and silence were love. But they were fear," he continued, handing Ethan a gift bag. "These are for her. Just stories. That's all." He turned without waiting for a reply. On the plane, Ava opened the bag. Inside were 5 picture books, each featuring a black girl as the heroine. On the first page of each was a note in faded ink. "For Luna, may you grow without fear. Grandpa Walter." She didn't cry. Not on the plane. Not even when Charleston disappeared below the clouds. But later, in Seattle, after unpacking the last box, after Luna was asleep in her crib, Ava read Walter's letter one more time. "Some men carry guns. Others carry regret." Ethan joined her on the couch, wrapping her in a warm embrace. "Do you believe he's changed?" she asked. "I think. He's trying," he replied. "But we don't owe them proximity just because they're sorry." Ava nodded slowly. Forgiveness doesn't mean access. In Seattle, the air felt lighter. No curious stares when they walked together. No veiled slurs at grocery stores. No one asked Ava where she was really from. It wasn't perfect, but it was healing. Ava got a job teaching literature at a local high school. Ethan opened a small music studio. Luna started daycare. came home humming songs in Spanish, English, and Mandarin. Every night, she curled up in Ava's lap with one of the books Walter had sent. One day, Ava stood before her class, reading Maya Angelou's Still I Rise. A student raised her hand. "Miss Johnson," she asked, "do you think people like Walter can truly change?" Ava smiled faintly. "I think people can learn," she said, "but they have to want it more than they want to be right." The bell rang. Students shuffled out. Rain tapped on the windows, but Ava didn't flinch. Outside, the sky was gray but calm. The storm hadn't ended, but it had moved on, and for the first time in a long while, Ava could finally breathe.